Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zenker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker and I'm your host. And I'm always looking for people who are going to challenge you to think differently, to find new perspectives, and bring the best of yourself. And as a result, a byproduct is you'll be more productive. Hopefully, you'll also be happier, more fulfilled. And that's what's most important. That is really what productivity is really, it isn't the point. It's everything else. And productivity will be a byproduct. So today, I'm excited on Take Back Time to have Robin Hills here today. He's a director of EI for Change, a company specializing in educational training, coaching, and personal development focused around emotional intelligence, which is absolutely key, positive psychology, and neuroscience, three of the things that I love to talk about. So we're going to have fun today. He's taught over 250,000 people in 185 countries to build resilience, increase self-awareness, and understanding of others. So this guy knows his stuff. His educational programs on resilience and emotional intelligence cover the most comprehensive and detailed education of any other emotional intelligence organization that has been established. And from there, I'm just going to let Robin introduce himself and why this topic is so important to him. So welcome.
Thank you ever so much, Penny. It's wonderful to be here on this podcast with you. Thank you for that great introduction. There's not a lot more that I can really add to that. I suppose really the question is about why emotional intelligence and what got me interested in the field of emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Why?
Why? Well, emotional intelligence is basically fundamental to everything that we do as human beings. The way in which we manage ourselves is the way in which we combine our thinking with our feelings in order to be more productive, to make better decisions and build up quality relationships. And that's all about the essence of being human. Interestingly enough, animals do not have that ability to combine their thinking with their feelings to the same extent. They have difficulty regulating their emotions. We can do it as human beings, but we've got...
Well, I'm going to laugh because that's not really that true, but we're working on it.
It's not easy, and I think that is something vitally important to bring to your listeners' attention, that being emotionally intelligent is not easy. It is a very, very simple construct to think about, and it looks very easy on the surface, but to practice it is incredibly difficult. It takes a lifetime plus to master it.
It certainly does. But you mentioned all the wonderful benefits of being emotionally intelligent. I think the most important thing is it just improves the quality of our life.
It does. Yes, it improves the quality of the relationships that we have with other people. And it improves our health and well-being. It drives happiness. It drives contentment. It means that we're at peace with ourselves and at peace with the world. And we know, as we are speaking, the world is not a wonderful place, in a wonderful place at the moment. So what is it that we can do in this sort of environment? Well, what we can do is be kind within our own environment, try and improve the quality of life for everybody else around us, and hopefully the waves will penetrate through to where they need to go to.
So I want to challenge you on that for a second. One of the things that I hear from people sometimes when, even my kids, for instance, when I say, be the bigger person, right? I'm helping them to be more emotionally intelligent. And you said, be kind in our environment, right? And she's like, why do I have to be the one who makes the first step? Why do I have to be the one that sees things from a better perspective? So how do people get past that? Because I think some people know what to do, right? They just don't do what they know. So how do we get past that? Why me? Why do I have to be the one that sets forth goodness into the world?
You know, Penny, that is a really, really interesting question. And I've often asked it to myself at times because I feel that I'm continually giving out to other people and they're not reciprocating. And I do ask that question, why me all the time? But the thing is, if I don't do it, then nobody else is going to do it. And a lot
Why
of what
not
we
you?
do, well, a lot of it is about choice and it's about going into other people's space and working with them in terms of their energy, working with them in terms of their emotions. It's giving. And it is draining to do that all the time. And we're often left thinking, well, what about me? Is anybody going to give me space? Is anybody going to give me time? Is anybody going to listen to what I've got to say? And I think the important thing is you need to find that safety valve. You need to find that person who you can go to have those kind of cathartic conversations who will give to you. And it's important for your emotional intelligence to have that person to just listen, just to be there for you. And then you can reciprocate with that person.
Yeah, I want to challenge you again. You said it's draining. I'm sorry, this is part of the show, right?
Sure. Challenge away. That's what I'm here for. We're here to have conversation.
You said it's draining to do. And I think that it's draining if that's how we choose to see it, right? So my daughter, for instance, at that moment when I was talking to her, it felt draining. But I find sometimes that, for instance, giving it builds me up. It makes me feel better. Like I feel better when I show up. I don't regret how I showed up. I don't come back and have to worry, did I do the right thing? I don't know. Somehow I think there's two ways to see it, right? I think that when you're resisting it, then it feels draining. When you embrace it and you own it, then I think it's not draining. It makes you feel good because you know that even if someone comes and is grumpy back to you, like it's hard to be grumpy. I notice people's energy shifts sometimes when they're around me. And I notice when I'm grumpy, it shifts too, right? Then they get grumpy. So we're these energy transmitters. And it's kind of fun to play a game, I think. And I want to get your feeling on that. But you could just play a game and just watch and see how long it takes someone else's energy to shift when you stay in a better space for yourself. You don't have to do it for someone else. Do it for yourself. It feels good. It makes you happier. It improves your relationships, makes you more productive. I don't know. That sounds pretty good to me. So tell me what you think about that.
It does. No, I'm in full agreement with everything that you've said. I think the important thing is to look at yourself and recognize that if you are continually giving, there are going to be certain times of the day and there are going to be certain phases that you're in where your emotional intelligence is not at the level that you would like it to be. And in those sort of situations,
get triggered, right?
You're triggered, and they may be physiological triggers. You may be hungry, you may be thirsty, you may be low in energy, you may be starting to get a little bit dozy. And because you're starting to flag in terms of your energy, you're not making good decisions. And so you're kind of doing what you firmly believe, and it just doesn't land properly. You may be starting to feel under the weather. You may have a cold coming on. You don't know it yet. You perhaps have got some kind of subclinical state that you're in, which might then just open up over the next few days. And you then look back and think, that's the way that I felt the way that I did. So I think you just got to recognize that you cannot continually give and it will always land in the way that you want it to. And there are going to be certain times where it's almost a kind of false happiness. And I don't suggest that we do that. I think your word around your approach around positively engaging and choosing to positively engage is the right approach. I think we've just got to go in there with that mindset. That's what we're trying to do. And if it doesn't land, it doesn't land. And you just have to accept that there are going to be times when it just doesn't work.
Well, it's not our responsibility of how someone else feels. I think that's also, it's not my responsibility how you feel. I can only direct how I show up and how I feel. So I think that's important, right? When you try to own someone else's reaction, then that's only going to create disappointment. So I agree with you in that sense.
And I think what we're trying to do here is we're not trying to manipulate people in any way, shape, or form by changing our energy or try to choose an appropriate emotion that would work with the other person. What we are doing is validating them. So if they have a lower energy, we drop our energy down in order to meet them at where they're at and try and raise the energy levels.
Yeah.
If they're high energy, then it takes a lot of energy to boost yourself up to their level and work with them at their speed. And that can be draining, particularly if you have an introversion preference and you get your energy from going away from social situations and just kind of recharging your batteries through peace and quiet and reflection. Now, people with an extroversion preference don't have that perspective. They don't work and think in that way. They don't get their energy that way. They get their energy by walking away and talking to more people, going out, getting excitement. That's the way in which they energize themselves. And that's all part of one's self-knowledge and self-reflection. Where do I get my energy from? Do I have an introversion preference? It's not being introverted. It's not being shy. It's not being withdrawn. It's I get my energy from an internal state of reflection. Or do I have an extroversion preference where I get my energy from outside? It's like being solar powered. Yeah. And in those sort of circumstances, I need the energy of other people, the energy of the environment, the situation that I find myself in order to energize myself. What is your preference? That's a key question for everybody to understand and to reflect on.
I think you said it earlier also, you're tired, and is to know yourself, know when you're running low on energy or when you don't feel like you normally feel, and how do you re-energize or take space or whatever it is that you need in order to get back to feeling like you're in that place that you can interact and be emotionally intelligent. So for sure, that's key. That is absolutely key.
Let me give you an example which fits very much into the focus of your podcast and everything that you do. And I'm sure you've heard this example many times before. If I get a contentious email that requires an appropriate response and it comes in mid-afternoon, I know that is not a good time for me to respond to that email. So I either have to send a holding email saying, thanks for your email, I'll respond to it in the next 24 hours, or I leave it. And I know that first thing in the morning, between about to 8:30 in the morning, I can deal with the most contentious issues, because for me, that is when I am at my most, dare I say, emotionally intelligent, or I have the energy to be able to deal with those contentious issues and communicate in more appropriate ways. So it's knowing that in myself. Now, other people are going to have different timings in the day when they can do these things. So it's knowing yourself and knowing that if you do need to deal with something which has a level of emotional intensity to it, and it could be contentious, you've just got to select your time and do it properly.
Yeah, select your time if you can, right? Sometimes there are conversations and situations that come up that you don't have the luxury of pushing it off until tomorrow. So there's also things that we can do in the moment to help to put us into a better mental state so that we can handle that situation for what it is. Do you have some suggestions there of how I'm faced with it right now? I have to deal with it right now. What can I do to put myself in the best emotionally intelligent state possible?
It involves practicing mindfulness and being very much in the present moment, clearing your head of everything else and actually dealing with the situation. First of all, you need to concentrate on your breath and your breathing and get the right levels of oxygen into your body in order that you can then deal with that situation. If it really is something that is going to be incredibly, intensely emotional, you can ask for 5-10 minutes. Look, I'm desperately sorry. I need to go to the toilet. Go, get your space, utilize that time. It is a good excuse because it's a basic human physiological function, and you're not going to perform particularly well. Well, you may not need to go to the toilet. All you're doing is buying a bit of breathing space. Go away from the situation, get your breath back, count to 10, reflect, pause, do what you need to do, and then come back fully refreshed. The other person will probably be pacing, and they will be getting themselves into a bit of a negative spiral. That's their choice.
True. And you could also, in that moment, recognize that it's contentious and say, let's take a moment to just take a deep breath and step back and give each other a moment just to think about how we want to respond or how we want to have this conversation.
Yeah. And another little tip I will give to people is try this. It works really, really well. If somebody's not listening to you and they're talking over the top of you, the best thing to do is to drop something.
Okay.
And it just kind of breaks that flow for them. Don't drop your mobile phone. You might crack the screen, but have something in your hand that you can drop, a pen or a piece of paper or something. It just kind of breaks the flow and allows both of you to kind of reconnect.
Right. It breaks that pattern, that story, that whatever's going on. You can also cough or sneeze. Right. That also creates a break in
have a glass of water.
Right. So those are great tips for people in that situation to get a moment and to break a rant that somebody's going on or something like that and bring it back. So that's a good tip.
Well, I'll give another tip for your listeners, and I think this has worked for me. I am actually mildly to moderately deaf. I'm actually quite moderately deaf. I usually wear hearing aids. I'm wearing headsets so I can hear you properly. And the beauty of it is that I have learnt over the years to actually say to people, look, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't hear what you've said. And they will then repeat it back. And if I explain to that I am deaf, they apologize for me. And I say, look, nothing for you to apologize about. Mm-hmm. It's my issue, but we just need to make sure that I can hear what it is saying. I'm interested in what you're saying.
Right.
So if I do have to break the conversation, I will say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat it? Now, interestingly enough, most people can't say it that way. They put the blame on the other person for not speaking properly. Whereas,
what do you mean?
Well, they'll say, speak up or speak more clearly or say it in a way I can understand or whatever it is, rather than actually taking the responsibility on themselves and just say, look, I just didn't hear it.
Right.
I didn't hear the words or I didn't process them. And it actually opens up the communication and it makes the conversation flow better.
Yeah.
And again, it's part of me giving to the other person.
Right. And I find also, I mean, you're giving them your attention. You're telling them that you're interested, but you just audibly couldn't hear them. Yeah, I find sometimes what I do also is I'll get in a curious state. Like they might be saying something that even if I don't like it, I may ask them to expand upon that. Like, can you tell me a situation where that came up or help me better understand what it is that you're saying? Or I'll also like get curious and say, tell me more about that. Like go a little bit more deeper into that so I can better understand what you're saying. And I find that also by digging deeper or tell me more, let them get out everything that they need to get out. And then there'll be space for them to listen to you, right? Is there anything else? And then they say everything they need to say. And then like, okay, well, thanks for sharing that. Then there's a space where they're listening. So it is important that people feel heard.
Yes.
And I think that, I don't know if you've had this experience, but whenever people repeat themselves, you can be sure that they're doing it because they didn't feel heard. And I don't mean that they didn't feel emotionally heard, right? And so sometimes if we're interrupting somebody or they feel like we're not getting how this is upsetting them or what issue it's causing for them, then we're getting that repeat, right? We may have to repeat it back and say, I hear what your sounds like, or I hear that you're upset because of XYZ. They get that you get the emotional aspect of it. And then the conversation also is more easily.
It is. It's building up empathy. It's trying to understand it from the other person's perspective. Now, I find that if people are having to repeat themselves for my benefit because I haven't heard, it gives them a chance to actually reflect on what they're saying.
True. And then they might say it differently, right?
They might say it differently. And then if I still haven't heard it, and this does happen from time to time, can you say again, I'm really sorry, I do want to hear what it is that you've got to say. Now, they might then change their phraseology slightly, and again, it gets them thinking. So it's another tip to help to break the moment, particularly if people are on a rant. So if people are then starting to shout and get very loud, I actually say to them, look, I'm sorry, when you are speaking very loudly, I cannot hear you. It hurts. It's painful. And again, this is a consequence of the deafness, which is brilliant. These are things that,
Right.
okay, I'd rather not have, but if I've got it, flaunt it. In those sort of situations, I just have to say to them, look, I cannot hear you when you're shouting. Or by the other token, I can't hear when people are whispering. So we have to get into a space where we can actually communicate because I can hear them. So another tip is if somebody is really, really, really high energy and they're shouting, just say, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I can't process what it is that you're saying when you speak loudly. I wouldn't suggest you do it, but you can always use the excuse of deafness as being.
I don't think we need to lie.
No.
Emotionally intelligent conversation.
No, that's exactly it. But if you just genuinely haven't heard anybody, then just honestly say to them, I didn't hear you, rather than just blundering on.
And you can also say to somebody, let's wait until this isn't as upsetting for you so that we can hear each other and really have that conversation. For me, it's always about dropping into the empathy and not yelling back like that. In that case, for me, that doesn't work, right? Is if I'm upset and somebody's yelling and we're yelling back and forth, that's only going to escalate and end up in a place that you don't want it to. So It's really, how do you de-escalate the situation in any way possible? And then you can have that conversation. And usually it comes from empathy, understanding, and being in somebody's shoes, imagining how they must feel, right? There's a lot of different tips and tricks in order to do that. But the important thing is that whatever's going on for them doesn't have to trigger you if you don't allow it to. And I know that that's easier said than done. I've got kids and we all have those situations, but I still do my best to bring the situation down. And if I'm not in a place, I'll put myself in timeout. I'll say, you know what, I just need a moment, and I'll leave the room.
Yeah, but it's the calmness that you bring to the situation which will help. I have again, it's a strength which I recognize in myself, but it can be a big, big disadvantage at times because I've got a very, very calm, softly spoken way of speaking. People don't think that I have a level of passion for something. Well, I do. I might not be high energy in terms of sharing that passion, but it does tend to work in situations of high intensity, because what happens to me in those situations is I actually wind down and I become even more low energy because it just seems to work. But again, these are the sort of things that I've learned. They're part of me. They're part of my personality. So again, I've come to recognize that I've got that level of self-awareness and I get them to work for me. It doesn't mean to say that I get it right all the time. I've just got to repeat something that you said a few moments ago. This is not easy stuff. It's very difficult at times. And it's very easy for us to sit here and talk about it in theory. But in the intensity of the moment, we are just reacting as appropriately as we possibly can. And through experience and over periods of time and getting it right, getting it wrong, we learn and we can become better at it, knowing full well that if we can give ourselves 8 out of 10, that's good enough.
Absolutely. We're just can be happy that we're doing the best that we can, right? That's all we can do.
Learn to be the best that you possibly can be. Enjoy being who you are. Recognize that you're not perfect, but recognize you've got special gifts that nobody else has got. What are they? Where are they? How do you use them? And how do you get better at them?
Perfect. Well, that seems like a perfect ending for our show today. Thank you so much for being here. Where can people find out more information about you?
Well, they can look for me on the internet, Robin Hills, ROBIN Hills, and you can find me at ei4change.com. Look for me on LinkedIn, look for me on Facebook, EI for Change on Twitter. If you want to have a look at some of my emotional intelligence courses, www.emotionalintelligence, all one word, .courses, or emotional-intelligence.courses. and you'll see a whole range of courses around emotional intelligence that you can have a look at and decide whether they would help to support you in terms of your own learning and development.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Robin, for being here.
Thank you, Penny. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you all for being here. So I just want you to take away just one little tip there, whatever it is for you that can help you de-escalate a situation in the moment, that can help you. Maybe it's just taking a deep breath, and that's just a reminder of something that maybe you already knew. Whatever it is, being more emotionally intelligent is going to help you improve the quality of your life. It's going to help your health, your relationships, your productivity. So it's definitely worth you spending some time appreciating and learning some additional techniques, because wherever you are, just remember that there's multiple levels of black belt in karate. So you might be white belt, you might be at brown belt, or you might be at some level of black belt. In each level, there's something to be learned. So make sure that you're taking away something today that you can put into practice. Thanks for being here. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.